Welcome back to the What Happens Next podcast, where we talk with people who can offer insights about the next chapter of our lives. In this week's interview, we've got Tony Fields, and we talk about the work Tony does in supporting individuals, particularly in their 50s and 60s, navigate life changes and crossroads. Tony has gone through his own transition, although slightly younger than a lot of the clients that we work with. He's gone through that transition in his mid-40s, and Tony talks about what he's learned, both being a financial planner, but now a coach, helping people work out what they really want in life. Because my experience is that we do reach a point in our lives where we turn around and go, are we on the treadmill? Are we doing things because we've just always done them? And is this what we really want? And actually, I think Tony's insights are going to surprise you. So enjoy the interview and we'll see you on the other side. Good morning and welcome to this What Happens Next. My name's Chris Dames, as you probably know if you're watching this, and thank you for joining us. If this is your first time watching a What Happens Next video, let me explain what the What Happens Next project is all about. What we want to do is make sure that particularly if you're in your 50s and 60s and thinking about navigating change in your life, we want to have conversations that help you, empower you, guide you to think about that change in a more fundamental way. Effectively, the What Happens Next project came from me as a chartered financial planner, having conversations with my clients about money, but understanding that actually when you're at that crossroads, the conversations you need to have are a lot broader than that. And what we want to do is empower you with access to experts like Tony Fields, who we've got today, have access to interesting conversations and think about managing that change with a bit of time to spare in a way that really works. Now, I'm on a real mission with this sort of stuff, and it's one of those things that both I'm learning from our experts and I'm on a journey with too. So I'd love your support. I'd love your help with this. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. Firstly, we've designed a quiz that helps you work out where you are in terms of being prepared for what happens next. And what we'll do is on the comments on this video, and if you're watching this on LinkedIn, you'll be able to find all of the comments pointing to the quiz. But what I'd also encourage you to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel. My desire and what we're aiming to do over the next year is just share loads and loads of really good content, some of it written and designed by me, but a lot of it with experts, bringing in experts in specific areas of well-being to talk about their journeys, what they've learned along the way, but also help you make really good decisions about what happens next in your life. And that's why I'm really pleased today to be joined by Tony. Tony, how are you today?
I'm very good. Yeah, I really love the sound of the kind of mission you're on, Chris. And look, the sun's shining. It's went out for a dog walk first thing in very good spirits. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Tell me about the dog walk then. Is that something you do every day?
I'd say I'd probably do every other day. My wife loves a dog walk as well. Sometimes we go out together. Today, got out of the house 6:30. I think as well, you kind of seize the moment on days like this, just in a t-shirt. We've got a common nearby, and I think it just sets the day up really nicely, doesn't it?
I like really the idea of starting the day right. You know, for me, it's a bit of meditation, bit of exercise, and then I feel that I'm ready. But yeah, that sounds taking the dog for a walk sounds like a really good day, and being out in nature as well, right? I imagine is one of the big things. So for I know who you are because I asked you to come on, and I'm sure that my audience is going to benefit from your expertise. Just tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, look, it's a real pleasure to be here. As you see, my name's Tony. I'm approaching my mid 40s. It's kind of all happened quite quickly. I have kind of outside of my businesses, I have 4 kids, so I've got quite a busy home life. Eldest is only 9, as well as the dog. So we call it full on fun at home, which genuinely we love. I'm kind of I'm an individual that loves. I kind of love sport. I love a challenge, um, and something that's always been. I think it's been ingrained in me, Chris, actually from an early age, is kind of giving back and helping others.
Yeah.
So I know we'll talk probably a little bit more in shortly about reaching a crossroads and delving into kind of how you can successfully navigate that and all that important stuff. But for me, I feel genuinely privileged to be running a couple of businesses now, where I help people. I help people, and I guess my own mission, Chris, is I think there's so much emphasis placed on performance, and it's quite, look. Who doesn't want to be the best they can be? I think that's a very common thing. But actually, I want to inspire people through my events, through my coaching, to place as much importance on happiness. That's something that's really important to me. So yeah, that's a bit about me and what I do.
It's so interesting, isn't it? It's, we're surrounded by messages of success, like success can be defined by somebody else. So actually, what makes you happy? And one of our other guests, and he was really insightful. Look, there's probably more nuance to it than this. But Chris Budd, who runs the Institute of Financial Wellbeing, came on, and we were talking about the link between money and happiness. And his line that he always uses that I really like is work out what makes you happy and spend money on that. But then you get into this conversation about intrinsic motivations and like the material stuff that actually is really interesting. But let's talk intrinsic motivation. What gets you up in the morning, apart from the 4 kids?
Apart from the necessity to do so.
Yeah.
I find that when you have a real purpose, I think for a long time, if I'm honest, I kind of was on a treadmill, and a lot of people probably listening to this are on a treadmill, and it's quite rare to step off, actually. And so actually, when you, I think, really understand your why, and you wake up feeling a bit different. And even if, look, we all have moments. I'm not saying every day is perfect or anything like that. We all have struggles and stuff happens in my family. And but when you can just bring yourself back to why you do what you do, and it's beyond. It feels like it's beyond just providing for my family.
Yeah,
I know it. I need to do that. We all need to do that, but that gets me up in the morning.
Yeah.
It really helps. And then I start to think about what I can do to serve others. Yeah. And I think that's it's a really interesting one around sort of giving back. I'm not saying what I do is I do as a charity. I'm not a charity, but I do have charitable interests. But I think a lot of people probably listening to this may find themselves too busy, or they may feel like they're too busy to perhaps do things that might provide fulfillment, but actually it's chicken and egg. And actually, when you create time to do more things that you find really fulfilling, then life is different. It feels different, and you actually become more motivated, and it's a virtuous circle. So
you know what's interesting about it, Tony? I mean, I've been thinking quite a lot about this in my own life, and certainly having conversations with clients about this. My experience is, and again, we're all going to have our sort of own way of thinking about this, but my experience is, and one of my daily habits is journaling. So I actually spend some time in the mornings thinking and writing. Normally before my 12-year-old gets up and the house gets really noisy. I mean, my 12-year-old, I think, is probably makes enough noise for about 27 kids. So I do a lot of the work early, which is brilliant, by the way. But just very enthusiastic. But yeah, for me, when I was thinking about what I wanted to ask myself, sort of in the morning when I was going through that journaling process, the words that always struck me as just being genuine is positive impact. Now, that can apply to work because I want to make sure we're having a positive impact to the clients we work with. It applies to the team at Savello. It applies to, as you say, the work we do helping others in a charitable sense. But I think that positive impact driver really helps me think about my day in a different way. But I suppose part of the conversation we're having today is to help and support people going through a crossroads. And I know that you went through your own crossroads and started thinking about what happens next for you, probably a little bit earlier than a lot of the people listening to this. But there's lessons that we can learn from your experience and journey. So tell me what happened. Tell me what you learned along the way, and tell me what you'd change if you did it again.
Some good questions there. Some good questions. Yeah, for me, it started. I was actually made redundant about 7 years ago, Chris, and I'd been in the same sector since joining as a graduate, and I'd progressed quite well. And I guess my career was going in a certain sort of trajectory, and then I was kind of forced to step off. Yeah. And if I'm honest, this was 7 years ago, and I remember the moment very, very clearly. And I knew I wanted something different, but I didn't know what I did want. Yeah. All I knew was I didn't want to continue along the same path I was on. And it was actually a really painful, probably close to 4 years. So I spent 4 years trying different things. I was invited to run my first business. I then got an opportunity to go back into employment. I signed up to lots of extreme challenges. I was kind of searching. Yeah. This reached a point where I did actually reach breaking point in a business I was running, and I didn't want to go home and see my kids. And it was really tough because I knew my wife was struggling as well. Well, not struggling, but she had a busy household. Yeah. And I didn't want to go home. And I feel like I felt an immense sense of guilt because I'd started down this new path and kind of asked for my partner's support. Yeah. And it's a hard thing to do. And I didn't have it figured out. And I guess my default, Chris, and I think a lot of people probably fall into this camp, is to work harder and do more and put our heads down and solve it for ourselves. And that's what I was doing. And I was in a pretty tough spot, actually. I guess what changed for me, and it wasn't an immediate thing, but I actually fortuitously was approached by someone who was a coach, and I wasn't looking. I think most people are not. I certainly wasn't looking. I don't think most people are looking for a coach or mentor. But I was asked, what do I really want in life? Mm. And it's an amazingly simple question. But when I ask people that question today, most of us fumble the answer and we don't really know, or we come out with what we think we should say. And I was kind of challenged quite a lot around this. I think I'd remained on the same path that I was on because of money and that lifestyle I'd had. And I didn't believe it was possible to do anything else apart from the path I'd been on. I'm so pleased I went with my gut, actually, and I sort of said yes, which is hard because logically it didn't make any sense. I was doing, in 98% of people's eyes, I was doing well. Yeah. If you were to tick a box.
But you know, right? You know whether you do well.
something was missing. I knew, and there'd be a lot of people listening to this who probably have doubts, which is, I won't get into the detail, but it's the two parts of our brain, and part of it is logical, and that's what creates doubt, and we kind of think risk is bad, whereas it's the other part, the emotional part, that helps us to go after what we want, and we often listen to the rational part. So yeah, going through that experience was very, very challenging, but I'm very grateful I went through that experience. And it, what I learned from that was I learned more about myself. So I thought I was self-aware, and I now know that I've got so much to learn.
Yeah.
I've learned more in the last 2 to 3 years than I did in the 20 years before, but I've got so much more to learn. So it was really tough, but so beneficial. And I also learned, Chris, I can explain if needs be, that I was kind of programmed to think and operate in a certain way. And that sounds sort of deep and quite far-fetched, but I'll just give you an example. I feel fortunate for my upbringing, but my father, my late father now, but he worked in finance all his life. He'd worked incredibly hard to provide. So his role was to provide, to work hard, and to go for the safe, secure option in his eyes. Yeah. And I didn't intentionally intend to go down the same path, but I ended up thinking and operating in a very similar way to my father. And so, does that make any sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. The interesting thing there, I mean, normally it takes me until about question 4 to go off road, but I'm going off road now because I've got about 5 or 6 questions I want to ask you. I mean, certainly you look at, role models and how we think about what success looks like, and parental influence is always a big thing, right? Mm-hmm. I think we're lucky that we're now surrounded by the information is out there to look at some of the alternative ways of looking at our lives and thinking, what does success mean and look like for us? And for me, one of the benefits that I've had is, running a business and loving it, but also spending more time with my girls and taking Fridays off and writing and, sort of just getting that balance right. The challenge that I think we speak a lot with I really hope you're enjoying the interview so far. But now what I'd like you to do is take action to help you work out what happens next in your life. The easiest way to do that is to do the What Happens Next quiz. It's free to do, takes about 5 minutes, and you can do it while you make a cup of tea and wait for the next part of the interview. You can visit www.whathappensnext.life/quiz. You'll get your results by email immediately. And what the quiz will do is give you an insight into the areas of well-being you're doing really well at, but also the areas that you might want to improve. Enjoy the quiz. Let us know what you think, and let's get on with the interview. Clients about, and you've touched on it, and it's my first off-road question, so to speak, is identity. And that expectation of success looking like this, and why sometimes it's really difficult to move away from that. So tell me a little bit about, a 4-year journey and how you had to redefine yourself.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's look, a lot of people will have heard the phrase limiting beliefs, and it's talked about a lot, and we can read about this stuff. But it's not until you put this stuff into practice that it's going to mean anything really for you. But when you start to, when I talk about limiting beliefs and that identity, I started to realize that it was in my DNA to work incredibly hard. And people listening to this, it's about understanding what's in your DNA. And there's some fantastic things that have helped you to get to where you are. But there's some other things that are not serving you. If I want to be the best dad I can be, if I want to be the best partner, if I want to be someone who genuinely inspires others, I need to look into this stuff, and improvement starts from within. So when I started to do that, and it's based on, you mentioned parental stuff, it's based on our environment growing up. And so I used to, my wife would often say, it's Saturday, why are you not present?
Yeah.
Or we'd be on holiday and it would take me 3 or 4 days to unwind. And I would get frustrated because I think I'm trying. And what I learned was I wasn't doing it on purpose. I wasn't kind of sitting there thinking, I don't want to be present with my kids right now. It's because when you've got that hard wiring to, let's say, work 60 or 70 hours a week, you feel guilty even when you're with your family.
Yeah.
That you should be back at work. And some people will have the opposite of that. So,
but I'd imagine a bit of that is like, as you say, your dad gave you that model.
yes.
Instead of looking at that from a analytical perspective and say, well, you know what, there's bits of that might serve me, and that you just don't. You just say that's what success looks like, and that's what the role model is, and not break it down to what applies to your life. The other thing that came across when you were telling your story is that 4-year period of trying stuff and it not working, going through some pain along the journey. Do you think you've just got to give stuff a go and see how you get on and fail as part of the process of making change? How do you feel about that?
I think that's definitely part of the process, but I think there's an extra point I'll mention in a second, but I think that's definitely part of the process. I think some of us are not very good at that. We want to have things figured out before we get started. So we can often put immense pressure on ourselves for something to work out. And then we raise the expectations in ourselves and maybe even with our family that, don't worry, this is the right path now. So there's a phrase I was introduced to a few years ago, which is, there is good in every situation. But sometimes it takes longer to uncover what that good is.
Sure.
And most people rely on hindsight. So if people listening think of a challenging thing that happened in your life or business many, many years ago, at the time, most of us can't see the good in that situation. But looking back, hindsight's wonderful. We look at it and think, that I needed that to happen. That's exactly what was meant to happen.
And even if it was painful at the time,
even if it was painful at the time. So that's now. I've personally changed the hardwiring in myself and help others to if you can not wait 6 months to find the good, but improve that to 6 weeks, then 6 days, then 6 hours. You immediately start to, yes, the initial reaction might be, we can't change that reaction. We're frustrated or it's not going to plan again. But then quite quickly, if you can start to look for the good, it's quite, it actually allows you to let go more. And you don't take things so seriously and you just enjoy things a lot more.
Love that. How about
I was going to say a second thing in a moment, but I'll come back to it. The second thing I'd say.
How about comfort with risk? Because that's the other element that we need to consider, isn't it? It's just like, particularly like, I've got a client in my head right now who has taken that corporate path. It was one of the inspirations of what happens next, funny enough. He'd taken it the corporate path until the age of 57 and then gone, what am I doing? What am I doing? And what had stopped him doing it before, and clearly there was an element of money being a barrier and him thinking about that, and we helped and supported him by building a financial plan that meant that was taken off the table. But the other big element for that was, this is a risk for me because I'm good at this, or I'm perceived to be good at this. I don't know what's next. How comfortable, I suppose the big question is, when you're working with clients and in your own journey, how comfortable do you need to get with risk? And how do you need to potentially reframe it so that you are more comfortable?
It's a really important thing, actually. So I think a lot of us start with what's feasible, what we think is feasible,
Yeah.
and so we think that we're not able to, let's say, replicate the level of income we used to earn in a corporate career in a business. So we think that we're hardwired to think that way. So we don't give ourselves permission even to be curious, or even to explore. Look, undoubtedly, there's a lot of people who will be naturally big thinkers, and they overthink stuff, and perhaps that comes with procrastination and maybe levels of anxiety, and that I think, particularly if you end up going down a different path or a more entrepreneurial path, you have to learn to become more decisive, undoubtedly, which is gonna feel tough, because it's not in your nature. But if you want to become, if you recognize the need that you need to just do stuff more and be a bit more easygoing, then that starts by thinking and acting that way. So by making, that might be today, make a decision. Just make a decision. So I think, undoubtedly you need to reframe risk. But I'd say it actually starts with, don't focus on what's feasible, focus on what you want to start with.
I love, there's two elements that I just want to share on that. So I love that one of the most seminal books that I'm thinking about quite a lot when I'm thinking about the What Happens Next project is a book called Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett. Have you read it, Tony?
I've not. I've heard of it, but I've not read it.
Really good. I mean, the TED Talk, 18 minutes, just absolutely fantastic. And he's got this principle of low cost experimentation in our lives, where you just try stuff incrementally that builds up to, but managing risk in a way that, like, this interview today, I know I'm going to get a lot from, but if you would have said no, look, it's not going to hurt my feelings too much, and it won't change your life ultimately. But like doing more and more and more of those things, number one, to increase your comfort level with asking, but also to learn more incrementally is brilliant, and sort of mitigates those big jumps because you're just changing fundamentally. And I suppose the other big thing, and this was a reframing for me, was the question how. If I want to do this, how do I get there, as opposed to is it possible? Because then you can build a plan to get there, can't you? You can get there. Sometimes you go, oh, that will never happen. Reframing that to how might that happen?
Yeah, it's a good point.
A helpful way of doing it.
Chris, can I share an example? A client, you talked about incremental progress there, and there's someone, I think, an individual I'm working with. He's in his 50s. He's been through a really interesting transition, but I think it would be quite interesting and relevant if you're happy for me to share. But this is an individual who was in HR transformation projects and has been all his life, but his passion is cooking. And talking, some people decide to make a big leap. Most people, you mentioned incremental, just sort of incremental things. So we kind of looked at the big dream, which is perhaps doing what he's passionate about. He's in his mid-50s and initially thought, I can't do that. That's not possible. I've never done this before. I love it. And I cook for family and friends and lots of stuff. But he just initially just took a small step and just set it up, a very small sort of business where he creates spices and other things initially, very small initially. And I remember him considering doing his first ever YouTube video. You spoke about YouTube earlier. And it was like a massive thing for him. I've never done a video before. It took him about a week to do this video. And then he just got a bit better and more comfortable. Yeah. And now he does 4 a week. But he never ever would have dreamed that he'd have done that many. And then what culminated from that, he started to get a little bit of income. And now he's set up a business. And I just saw him promote something on LinkedIn today, the Asian Cooking Academy. He's now joined forces with some very high profile chefs and puts on masterclasses for people. but he's just gradually then phasing back his day job. He's not put it all, kind of jacked it all in or anything like that. He's just done it gradually and incrementally started doing more and more. And he's now saying, Tony, that when you said to me, like, think about what I want and that dream, I didn't believe it to start with, but we're 12 months in, I can now see it happening.
Yeah.
I can actually see it, but I just need to keep doing these little micro things every single week. And incrementally they move and they result in significant change. So I thought I'd share that because it's very relevant.
100%, Tony. I love that. The part of the reason we're doing What Happens Next is that element of I'm getting frustrated when clients are coming to see me 3 months before they want to stop whatever they're doing with no plan on what happens next. But having a bit more sort of runway and making those incremental changes early might be the solution, right? Because then you're sort of you're mapping out what's next before you even stop what you're doing now, which is exactly what your client did. However, we know that often it's ourselves that hold us back, and that's often through mindset. So talk to me about the work that you do around mindset with clients and how you help them think about what's possible.
Yeah, it's a really exciting area actually, and a bit scary actually at times. I would say if I talk about maybe the journey that someone goes through. So at the start, I would say actually thinking about the big questions, my purpose, my values, what I want my ideal life. That book you mentioned, My Ideal Life, that's quite an exciting phase. It's something that people don't do. We're all busier than we've ever been before. We're more connected and switched on than we've ever been. So actually taking time out is quite cathartic actually, and it often is the first time people have done that, or the first time in 10 years, 20 years. But it's a really, irrespective of whether people even work with me or not, they do enjoy that process of actually reflecting on what an ideal life looks like. So that's kind of first stage. I think it comes with I think the feelings I would say would be excitement and being a bit scared.
Yeah.
Because you're starting to explore stuff you've perhaps never done before. And that's a sign in my eyes of a very good goal. If you know how to reach a goal, it's probably the wrong goal. So I often help people to think of just putting everything to one side. Just talk to me about what you'd love life to look like for you. So that's the kind of, so I'd say at the start, it's quite exciting. But I'd then say, and we then get into that, you mentioned holding back. That's a really quite a liberating sort of stage, because you start to piece together why certain things have happened in your life. And that might even include why your children act the way they do. So we kind of tell them what we need them to do. Actually, this is about walking the walk and showing. So that's when you might uncover that you've perhaps been somebody that's preferred to be in control all your life, or you've struggled to let go, or you feel at your best when you get recognition from other people. Or you feel like you have to work incredibly hard to be successful. So I'd say that's really quite profound, and it's interesting because when I speak to people, Chris, and even if I'm asking them what their ideal life looks like, some even say to me really soft things like, "I'd just like to be happier.
Yeah,
I'd like to be more content. I'd like to be able to just be." And that sounds simple, but I can tell you that's a different way of living. But I think what tends go on,
so
Chris.
the interesting thing on that is that could, I suppose the big question is, how do you do that now? What's in your power? I'm a fan of Stoic philosophy. I get a lot from reading Stoicism. And even though it's not for everybody, I think there's lessons in Stoicism that really help you reframe well-being in a different way. How much of being happy today is about mindset?
I'd say it is so fundamental. It is so fundamental. You could end up, what happens next, identifying and starting a new venture that's really important to you. But if you don't learn to love the journey,
Yeah.
if you don't learn to let go, to go with the flow, to not get so stressed when things don't go to plan, it doesn't matter. I'd say it's so profound, actually.
It's so interesting. Funny enough, one of the really insightful guests we had on What Happens Next is a lady called Ruth Sturkey. Now, Ruth is involved with the Institute of Financial Wellbeing and does loads of work. Used to be a chartered financial planner, sold her practice. And we met for some lunch in town. So we sort of sitting there having a chat, and I was telling her about Ride London. So I was doing Ride London, 103 miles, raising some money for charity. I'm really looking forward to it, but nervous. And she cycles. She's a really good cyclist. She said to me, "Oh, what time are you expecting?" And I said, "Really slow." And I've done that. I've done that for like I'll take on these challenges more as a challenge to myself. Mm-hmm. But I think it's really interesting when you define success in relative to other people's times. I'm not worried about that. Actually, if I finish, I'm good. And I think there is a societal expectation to want to be quicker and better. And actually, I think we can look at that in a bit of a different way. One question I wanted to ask you is, you're right, our lives are busier now, busier than ever before. How do we, and what process do you take your clients through in creating space, making sure they've got the space to think about what they want for their future and have some of these sort of conversations?
I think we all need a reset, and we need a reset more often than on a holiday. That's not enough, or we kind of will have a reset once we retire. I mean, that's my father wanted a reset when he retired, and unfortunately lasted 2 years, less than 2 years.
Yeah.
So you kind of see, unfortunately, the kind of old way of doing things, and it's not attractive. It's not sufficient. We need more resets. So I would say it's interesting to hear about your morning routine. I could talk and share some things about morning routines, actually, but I'll just share one thing I was encouraged to do a few years ago that is part of my morning routine now. It's practicing gratitude.
Yeah.
And actually just spending time every single day thinking and writing what you're grateful for. And it might be big things, the health of your family. It might be today. Like, it's genuinely a glorious day. These are things. And I also, there's a fantastic book I've read recently by Robin Sharma, who's, again, a very influential kind of sort of guru in sort of personal development and growth. And he was the originator of the 5 a.m. club. Get up before the house gets busy and actually think about, reflect on what's important to you. And one question he asks is, how can I be the best version of myself today?
Yeah, interesting.
What a great question to ask. So I do that now. And I think when you think, right, how can I be a better leader today, a better dad, a better role model, you kind of keeps you centered. I mean, one thing I've recently started to do, Chris, I used to do a lot of events, and I do speak at events, and I really enjoy them. But sometimes we just go back to our busy lives, don't we? It's not deliberate. We just go back and we're busy. And so I now host some of the events and workshops I host are an experience. It's practical. It's actually, I'm going to help you to reset together and guide you and show you how to do that. And you're not even going to do it alone. You're going to do it with a bunch of other people who want to be the best version of themselves. And when you do that, I find with others in a private setting, so you're not in a private setting, and you start to reflect on some stuff. And then actually you go another step and you say, actually, why am I waiting 6 months to focus on my health?
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate I've got things coming up, but I'm going to take some action and share it with other people and do it today.
Yeah.
And that's what you start to do. And actually, with your well-being, I've been planning. How often do we use the words? I will. Once I have more time or more money or more resources, I'm going to get started. Actually, if it's important to you, how can you make that a priority today, tomorrow?
Yeah.
And then when you build in, for example, for some people I work with, they say, you know what? I feel better every time I go for a walk in the middle of a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel better. I feel like, and I must admit, Chris, I still struggle with this. I kind of look at that to-do list and you kind of feel the anxiety start to build up and I really need to get this done. And then I force myself, I often have to force myself to go out, and you come back and you solve problems quicker.
Yeah.
And you feel re-energized. So I guess it's trying to create the support and framework to help people to do that. And it's just hard. I'd say it's hard doing this stuff alone. It's not impossible, but when you've got the support of perhaps a community, the support of maybe a coach or mentor, it's science-based. We're humans. We're more likely to do stuff when we make ourselves accountable to others.
So there's a couple of really interesting things there. Number one is, you're right. There's plenty of information out there, isn't there? We've got all of the information we need, and often that isn't enough.
True,
we can get access to all this stuff, but often it isn't enough, and it's creating that space. So I suppose there's two elements that I want to explore a little bit on. Number one, how we were talking before we start the interview about setting commitments for yourself and keeping yourself accountable. So I'd be really interested in understanding how that fits into the work you do with clients. And the one that's really interesting to me is, how do you know you've found the right coach or mentor? Because there are a number of coach and mentors available out there. Some of them really decent, some of them probably not so good. How do you know that you've got somebody that you're aligned with that can help you live the life that you want to live?
Maybe I'll start with the second point, actually, if that's okay. Yeah, and I'd have. There's three things that come to mind, Chris, because it is a very personal thing.
Yeah,
and I'd say number one would be a good fit. So to qualify that, I would say, if that individual has solved a problem that you want to solve, that's really important to you, either for themselves or for lots of clients they work with, that's a good tick to start.
Give me a practical example of that, Tony. How does that work with you and your clients?
Yeah. So, for example, if there's someone listening to you mentioned that individual in a corporate career who's come to a place where they just want to explore something else, and they want to maybe create a business to give them more time, freedom, and have more purpose. In that example, it's beneficial. One of my three criteria would be identify a coach or mentor who helps people to create businesses that provide real purpose and fulfillment.
Sure.
And they help people go through that transition. And maybe they've been through that transition themselves.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be a traditional business coach or a I don't know, someone helping necessarily with the strategy. That might just be
the factors of success are purpose and fulfillment, not money, aren't they?
Exactly right.
What you're aiming for is different.
Exactly right. The second bit of advice I would give would be trust your gut. So I think it's very easy to make a list, and we all do this, a list of pros and cons. You will just know.
Yeah.
So I often say to people, it's genuinely not, I do not convince anyone to work with me. I don't need to. I can't influence that. I just say to people, you may have, from the logical side, have a few doubts because you're about to embark on something you've not done before. So you're bound to have doubts. That's normal. But if your gut is saying, this just feels right, I would say, seize the moment. Trust your gut. would be kind of a second thing to think of. I forgot that the third point has just escaped me. It'll come back, but I think that would be like a good place to start.
No. I completely get that, and it's that element of have you got that relationship with that individual that's going to allow you to trust them.
Yes.
How long did it
that was funny enough, that was actually my third point, more around kind of that rapport. And I think you ultimately, if you end up working with a coach or mentor, you need to really trust them. You're going to end up, you need to be open. This only works if you have an open mind, and you've got again, there's a change you really are really committed to, but you have to don't hold on to stuff. Share it. So that you need to have that trust and feel like that individual is in your corner.
Yeah,
that'd be my third thing.
It's that. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Like I think they call it coachability, but for me, it's as simple as the admission that none of us have got any of the answers, including the experts in a particular area. We're all, I say this quite a lot to clients, is like, we can certainly help you, but we're on that journey of development and progression and stuff like that as well, and we'll help and support you along the way. How much of that traditional, because I wasn't trained to do that. No. I didn't start my career doing that. I think the perception is, no, you're the expert and you tell others, but then how much of that corporate, like as you say, that corporate stuff where you're perceived as being the expert and you can't admit you're fallible, have you got to undo to get to that process of what happens next, you think?
That is so important, Chris. It's really, if I'm really honest with myself, 7-8 years ago, I used to value a title. A job title. I used to like the fact I was receiving promotions. I would get a kick from people giving me a pat on the back. I would like it when I received a nice bonus. So I think we've had years and years, and we're surrounded by what people feel will or perceive as being successful. And I'm not suggesting, by the way, I mean, part of the work I do is to help people to be the best version of themselves. And that does ultimately, indirectly, result in them becoming more a better version of themselves and potentially doing a lot better in their business. But you have to undo a lot of that. And when you strip it all back and look at what's really important, if it was 20 years from now and you were giving some advice to your future grandchildren, and you were reflecting on your legacy, what would you want your legacy to be? And when you start to think like that, you start to, I want to have inspired loads of people, or I want to have really left an impact. I want to have supported some causes that are really passionate about. You start to think differently. And then, but actually I would say, like, particularly me going down the journey I've been down, I remember for a time struggling to put myself out there as a coach. And I would be concerned about what people would think who knew me from a previous career 7-8 years ago, and would think, how he's not qualified to do that. And we all have those thoughts. And I remember just making a commitment about 2.5 years ago to get over myself. And actually, if you want to get out your own way. And I actually had a video. My wife came up with this idea. And it remains the best video that's ever been produced, that I produced. And my wife said, I think it'd be a good idea to do a video of what you used to be like, Tony. And do you mind if I share that? So she shared a video about how I was never present. I was never switched off. She wasn't what I thought I was going to be when I was married. And it was the most painful watch you can imagine. And then she spoke about how life is different and it's changed, and how she's got a husband back. And that remains the most best performing video that's ever been produced. But it was very hard to put it out there. Sure. But actually, I think you've got to walk the walk.
Yeah, 100%. And it's that, I think authenticity is always more powerful, isn't it? If it's coming from a place where it's real and it's authentic and it's true, including the painful bits, including the hard bits. then you're in a position where you're sort of you're being authentic with it. Somebody watching this, thinking about what happens next in their life, got to that element of frustration where they're going, you know what, I really need to do something. What do you think the first step is?
I think the first step actually is acceptance. So I've recently written a blog about this. Actually, I'm at a crossroads, and I called it 5 steps to successfully navigate a crossroads. And I put that together. I'm very happy to share a link if anyone wants to have a read. But having been there for a long time and now helped lots and lots of others, I think what we can tend to do, it's so easy to do, is convince ourselves we should be happy. So we convince ourselves that actually it's okay. I'm doing okay in this corporate career or in this business. It's on paper, it's fine. And it's so easy to convince ourselves that we're not in that place, and we kind of just try and put it to the back of our mind. So I'd say the first step is acceptance, and actually saying, I deserve more. It's okay to deserve more. And I think that when you come to that realization and actually say, no, I do deserve more, I'm committed to doing something about it, I'd say that's a very powerful, you're then more curious and more open, I'd say.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because there's that element of knowing that we're lucky, being grateful for what we've got, but also so that's the sort of part, I agree with you actually. Gratitude is fundamentally important. But often that can lead to complacency of saying, I'm doing all right, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So how do you square that circle? How do you stay grateful and know that you're really lucky, but also move towards a life where you might have great satisfaction?
Well, I think it is a tough balance, actually, but I think it's about fulfillment to me. So if I don't know, have you come across the phrase ikigai, Chris?
Yeah, love it. Love that principle. Yeah. So
if people haven't heard of that, there's 4 parts of that. And the 4 parts of that are you doing something you love?
Yeah.
Are you doing what you love in life? Are you doing something you're really good at where you're using your skills? Are you doing something that you're leveraging your kind of worth and you're being paid well for that service? And lastly, it's quite deep, but are you doing something the world needs? I reframe that and look at, are you solving a challenge, a problem that's really important to you? And what I find when I ask those questions to people who are at a crossroads, commonly they tick 2 of those 4 boxes, Chris. And the boxes they tick often, not always, but often they're pretty well paid for what they do, and they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
But very often they're not playing to they're not excited on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And they're not solving a problem that they're really passionate about. So you are going to continue to feel frustrated or something's missing if you do not focus on all 4. And that's something I kind of help with. But
that model is amazing for thinking about how you spend your time and how you do that. Now, one of the things that I was really interested in talking to you about, and it's not a question I've prepared you for, but it comes back to that element. I think about my life as a sort of a bit of a balancing act. You've got work, but you've also got the time you give to family and friends and community and doing good. How do you get the balance right, and how do you create time for the things that are important to you whilst making sure that you're contemplative about what you want in your life?
Good question. Yeah, I think it is a. I don't think anyone's truly got this all figured out. No. If I'm honest, I think sometimes you focus more on something, and then something gives. So I think we're always.
I think that's fine as well, right? There's going to be. Yeah.
I think that is fine. But I think just being clear on what your priorities are.
Yeah.
There's a question actually. Who do I want to be? Which I think is a really great question. And for me, I remember doing this about 6 months ago. Sport and fitness has always been a part of me, but I just got busy and I just not got in a rut, but I just wasn't prioritizing that. And I remember asking that, because when you say who do I want to be, that includes maybe as a dad, as a leader, and I remember a healthy dad, a fit and healthy dad is something that's important to me. So I just made a commitment at the start of this year that I was going to. I want to walk the walk for my kids. We're actually doing this weekend. Actually, we're climbing Mount Snowdon. I'm taking my 7 and 9-year-old boys up a mountain.
Are you taking your dad as well? You tell me.
I'm taking my father-in-law. So my wife's father, who fair play to him. He's actually he's not in probably the shape he would want to be in, but he's actually used this as a bit of a motivation to get himself fitter, which has been great. But I would say. Thinking about what your priorities are, and for some people they might be family, health, fulfillment, and just staying true to those is really important.
I mean, it's really interesting because I went through a situation in 2020 where we built a local business community in where I live in the Havering on the edges of Essex and East London, and that built to a decent size and scale. We had 1,000 members, local business members in the group, and we were adding value to their lives, but it wasn't lighting me up. So in the end, we sold it. We sold the business after building it. The most difficult bit was saying I don't want to do that anymore, and if you've got a desire and a passion to help people, sometimes you can say, well, I'll just carry on doing that for a little bit longer. And it's really that, I think, for me, the bit that was the struggle, but I knew I needed to do it for my own journey, was saying, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I need to do something else. That's the bit that I struggle with and think about quite a lot. But yeah, it's quite interesting. But I want to talk to you about your community, because I know you're big on communities, both in your business and adding value to the world. So tell me about how important you think community is. I know you just said earlier on about surrounding yourself in that coaching experience with the events you run through people who are on a similar sort of journey. How important do you reckon sharing the experiences in that room are to actually sort of working out what you actually want, and what role does community play in your business and personal life?
I think connection is so important, and I think it's quite easy to, probably with some of the changes I think that are happening, where I mean AI is fantastic and it can help and with efficiencies, but I think it's sometimes easy to think these are the answer, these are the solution. And there's some fundamental things that are really important to us, and if you with some of the communities I run, and I have free versions, which I think is because I want to give back and I want people to experience some of this stuff without having to feel like they have to pay. They may or may not become a client in due course. I don't mind, honestly. I get a kick from being part of that. But in those communities, they draw inspiration from each other. And I would say one interesting observation is I can tell you now, some of my clients, some of my members, some of my just members of the community, they see the journey that someone else has been on. And they see somebody, they see that client, his name is Rakesh Patel, they see him doing his first YouTube video a year ago, and now they see him. He was invited by the I think it was the Malaysian ambassador to a meeting just a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, wow, and it makes you feel I can do more. So I think there's the inspiration, there's the connection, and I think as well, we think it's just us going through stuff. We think we're the only ones who I don't feel like something's missing. And you get talking and you realize so many people feel the same way. And if the community is like-minded, it's people at a similar place. It's quite profound. And I mean, I've had clients as well, Chris, work with me, and some of my clients work with me on a one-to-one basis. Some of them are on a group basis. And some of those on a group, they finished and they were, I feel like something's missing. Like I've been through this experience, and so I've kind of launched an alumni thing for previous because people I think it's like an effective sports team. You're stronger together.
Yeah.
So I'm a massive advocate of community, and I think personally, you said something earlier, Chris. I think we're all learning. I joined about a month ago a community for me again. For me, not to get clients or because I want to surround myself with, and my business is going well. I'm not stuck or at a crossroads right now, but I just know if I put myself in the right room and in the right company, and some of these are international people that it elevates my thinking. It opens me to new ideas. It's very, very rewarding.
100%. I'm a big advocate for both collaboration and communities, and we're on a really decent journey with the business in terms of where we are. But that consistent focus on personal and professional improvement for me is really a really important part of the journey. I've really loved this. I've learned a lot. I need to reflect on what we're going to share with our audience, but you've given me about 27 million inspirations for new blogs and videos from my YouTube channel. So thank you so much. Where can people find out a bit more about you?
Yeah, look, I've loved it too, Chris, by the way. I think it's, I love having such open conversations, and we're talking about real stuff that matters. So I think loved it as well, genuinely. I'd say LinkedIn's a good. I mean, I have a website. It's tonyfields.com. People can check me out there if they wish. But I think LinkedIn is quite a good channel where I'm very active. I've got lots of events that I host. The one I mentioned earlier, I'd run something called Catalyst Kickstart, actually, which is about reset, refocus, re-energize. So again, it is about stepping back, but doing it not on your own. And
sure.
It's very practical. That starts on the 8th of July. So I'd probably say LinkedIn is a good place to sort of connect with me, or if any of the events I've got coming up, have a look at what I've got coming up. If anything resonates, I think that's a good opportunity to just experience some of this stuff. And reflecting alone is not impossible, but it's just a bit harder sometimes. So that would be a good.
What certainly is, from what you've said, is the opportunity to think about and get asked the right questions to help you reflect is key. Tony, thank you so much, mate. And I hope if you're watching this either live or on catch up on YouTube, you really enjoyed it. I hope you have a lovely remainder of the day, and we'll see you soon on What Happens Next. I really hope you enjoyed that interview. And I know that podcasts are brilliant because when you're on the go, you can listen wherever you want. However, if you've got a few minutes, and like me, you're a bit more of a visual learner, you might want to visit our YouTube channel at What Happens Next Live. There'll be a link in the comments as well so that you can find us. And what I really appreciate you doing, we've got all the interviews on there, all the interviews you're listening to right there on there. But what we've also done is recorded exclusive content specifically for the YouTube channel that you can watch and get more insights into the next stage of your life and navigating it successfully. I'd ask a favour while you're there, if you can, like the videos you like, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us help more people. Thank you. So I loved interviewing Tony because there was so much insight into his into what he shared, and thinking about choosing a good coach and mentor and working out whether that coach and mentor is a good fit. You feel you can work with them, you trust your gut and you feel you can work with them, and you get the ability to build trust and rapport are all really important tips when you're thinking about the next chapter of your life and finding the right coach to help you. Hopefully that was useful, and we'll see you on the next episode of What Happens Next.